Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Tuesday market review. Good to be back after a few days off and a little week off from posting any content on my front. Lots to talk about with FOMC tomorrow, potential gold top with a big rotation coming into Bitcoin. Let's get into the video. Quickly before I start, this video is for informational purposes only and reflects my personal views. It's not financial advice, and please always consult a qualified financial advisor before making investment decisions. So yeah, good to be back. Had a few days off towards the end of last week just to reset a little bit. Didn't miss too much, to be honest. Came back on Friday, Saturday, and we obviously had that weekend move up as usual. BTC, we're going to start on BTC, taking a look at Bitcoin PA and discuss the sort of move we're getting right now into FOMC and comparing it to the FOMC back in September of this year. So yeah, we did get that move up on the Sunday, right? And what we have is the weekend gap, you know, or some people like to call it a CME gap, but I like to look at it as a weekend gap. Basically, what we have is the Friday close to the weekly open. That leaves sometimes a market imbalance, depending how price traded over the weekend. And what you'll find is in balanced markets that a lot of the time the market would repair this so-called CME gap, or as I said, weekend gap in my chart here. I just prefer to highlight the weekend gap. I think it's been more accurate for me than using the CME chart itself. Just a way of being able to use the same chart rather than having to use, you know, multiple different charts and tickers, right? So what I want to highlight here is the fact that right now the probabilities on poly market is a 98% chance of a cut by 25 BPS. So there's very, very high odds favored towards the Fed cutting rates yet again. Similar to what we had back in September, right, where we had that move up in towards FOMC. What we had was a bottom into sort of September, and then the 2 weeks prior to the FOMC data and numbers release, we had price walking up. So essentially what we were doing, we were pricing in the fact that the Fed was going to cut rates. We can see on the 17th, that is when we had the FOMC numbers dropped. We had that little spike up, but then followed with price retracing and trickling back down, right? And obviously we eventually got that good rally going into October. So we are seeing similarities here from that FOMC to this one, again with the same numbers, right? We both have high probabilities of rates being cut. And again, we're seeing that similar move up, right? With price sort of trading up since Friday last week, where we bottomed, now to Tuesday this week. So again, almost 2 weeks of price trailing up and pushing up into FOMC. So, you know, that's something we have to be cautious of, is the fact that this FOMC is a sell the news event, right? The only reason we would see necessarily a change in a price action, right, was if there would be a huge miss in terms of what people were predicting. Let's say the Fed don't cut rates, or the Fed eventually or cut rates by 50 BPS, right? Maybe we see some larger scaled moves to the upside or the downside. But for now, with the market already pricing in the fact that the Fed's going to cut rates again and seeing this move up, I'm not expecting too much going into FOMC. Maybe there's a chance we pop into 119, but evermore I am kind of expecting this to eventually retrace back to 111k. At least that looks like the best opportunity to get a fresh swing along on Bitcoin in terms of leverage. If you've been following me on the channel for a while, you know that I am spot long BTC. I've been very bullish on Bitcoin and remain to be very bullish on Bitcoin for the rest of the year and going into Q1 of 2026. I think we're going to be trading much higher and continue to hold my spot bag, which right now is an average entry is around 110 or 111k. So yeah, remain to say spot long on BTC. Overall, that's kind of my thoughts for the rest of the week. Best place to get long for a fresh position is back towards that 111k region. Anything sub 112k looks like a really good opportunity to get long, and we'll talk more on that shortly. So talking about the higher time frame on the weekly, it remains to be a very, very good support for BTC. I see no reason why anyone should be bearish with price action looking like this and price holding above that 108 to 106k region. This remains the invalidation for me. If price was to break under here, then that would be the exit scenario for me, as I would expect price on BTC to trail down to sub 90k, even as low as 80k, potentially even into a bear market if we fail to hold 106k. Overall, for now, we continue to do these sort of like weekly range high flips, right? Again, here we had that range high flip, flipped it, flagged into it, legged up, range high, flipped it, holding it as support, flagging into it, right? I see no reason why we can't get a move higher going into the end of the year, I see no reason why you should be bearish on Bitcoin. With a weekly structure like this, with the weekly liquidity get swept, really nice bounce. Discussing values a little bit. Right now, we continue to trade within the Q3 value on BTC. As you can see, we are trading between the Q3 value area high and Q3 value area low again. Pretty nice reclaim after breaking down below there, retesting that Q2 value area high. A really nice bounce from there so far, and we are trading back within this value. So right now we do remain range bound. For a good breakout higher on Bitcoin, we need to see acceptance above 119k, 120k. That remains the really key place to flip. Acceptance above here this week, then I would actually consider the scenario that we do not trade back towards 112k. Until we flip 119k, personally, I'm looking for fresh swing longs into 111, 112k on BTC. As discussed earlier in the video, again, we are trading within the prime monthly value, right between the prime monthly value area high and the prime monthly value area low. This is, our range right now. And again, back towards 111, 112k looks like a good place to get long if we get a pullback following a sell the news event going into FOMC tomorrow and later this week. I am looking for a potential short signal. Had a really nice buy signal. Didn't print a strong buy signal, but it should have done on my new system. That marked the bottom today. A 2.3% move up on BTC intraday, which is a really nice system catching these moves. But I am looking for some signals into the 2.5 to 3 standard deviations for a short. I think it does make sense to look for a short if the system does print a sell signal, so I'm going to keep an eye on that. Otherwise, I probably won't go blindly shorting, as there's a good chance that this can continue to trade into that 118 to 119k region, which, as I just mentioned, is the key place to flip. And if we do see acceptance above there, then you can basically pack your bags on a trip towards 130k and much higher. In terms of Bitcoin, that's kind of all I have to say. We do remain in range, but despite being in range, the higher time frame looks bullish. The deviation and the reclaim that we've seen right now on the daily, on the 3-day, on the weekly, everything looks great for a move up higher. And let's talk a little bit about gold now. So if you follow me on Twitter, or if you follow me in the group, if you're not in the group, then make sure you check out the link in the description. Posting daily thoughts, trades, ideas, and streaming a lot in the group at the moment. Lots of value and a good place to be locked in, so make sure you check out the link to join the Wealth Group Discord in the description if you're not already. I did post this on Twitter, managed to catch the BTC and gold rotation before anyone else sort of caught onto it. Was very vocal on the fact that I thought gold was topped. Had a lot of strong sell signals coming in on my system. Along with that, into that 4300 region, I posted on Twitter and equally in the Discord about gold being topped back on Friday the 17th of October, and the fact that we would likely see a rotation into Bitcoin, which I'll get into shortly. Overall, this has been a really good sign for BTC. The fact that we are bouncing on BTC when gold has been weak doesn't necessarily tell us that there is a rotation coming to Bitcoin, but it shows us that buyers are now interested back into maybe a bit of a riskier asset compared to gold, which, is a safer commodity to store your money into, right? And people like to look as BTC as that, digital store of value, a little bit riskier against gold, but a good place to shove money into if you're looking for a higher risk asset. I do believe that gold can see a bounce soon. Anywhere from here down to sort of like 37, 3800 looks like a place where we could see a reversal in gold. So with that in mind, we could see that rejection from Bitcoin. They don't necessarily always do like inverse, right? It doesn't always mean that if gold goes up, Bitcoin goes down, and if Bitcoin goes up, it's only because gold going down. This is not always the case. A lot of the time you'll find that they do move in unison and they will move together. But just keep that in mind, that I do think that gold could be bottoming soon. So depending on if we bottom on gold and maybe we form some sort of range down here under 4K, does Bitcoin reject? And if it doesn't, that can be a very good sign of strength in the market, especially on Bitcoin. So yeah, we found the gold top on BTC. I've been very vocal on that, and there's been a few reasons why I thought we would see a rotation. And if you follow me on Twitter, then I posted a tweet that actually went pretty viral because a lot of people caught onto it, and of course it is a 100% hit rate on something like this and has marked generational bottoms, or some people didn't like me commenting that it was generational, but it marked long-term bottoms and cycle bottoms for Bitcoin. So what we're looking at here is Bitcoin against gold chart, and every time BTC gold chart has traded into the minus 2.65 on the Z score. So a very undervalued chart. We can see how price reacted, right? Back in 2015, it marked the bottom before a huge bull run from BTC. Again, here in 2018 and 2020, both occasions when the Bitcoin gold chart traded into that minus 2.65 region on the Z score, we saw that huge bounce. And then again here into the bear market lows in November 2022. Obviously, this time round, we are not trading into bear market lows. We are trading, 600% on BTC, 700% and 250% up on the Bitcoin gold pair, right? So we have to consider that, okay, maybe this time is a little bit different, but anyway, this was still a good opportunity to get long. And I gave that signal in the group, and we're up around 15% right now on anyone that bought into the lows with me on that signal. And equally on Twitter, I was very vocal about BTC finding a rotation against gold and finding a bottom. So yeah, this is a really nice way of looking at the market, and I'll go into the higher time frame on the gold BTC chart as well, because there's something that I noticed today that I think will catch a lot of eyes. I don't think that Bitcoin has topped, and I do think that as long as we continue to hold quite well against gold, then we can see a very nice rally to new highs on the Bitcoin gold pair and even on the USD pair. If the BTC gold did trade into 23, I think that's a place that you want to be looking at, exposing yourself massively to Bitcoin. If we don't hold into 23 on the BTC gold chart on a move down there, I think it could be detrimental for the market, and we could see prices go into a bear market in crypto more so than commodities. So taking a look at this chart on the Bitcoin gold chart, right? Long-term trends for me, I'm not a massive fan of trend lines, but when you have something with the long-term trend and also the higher time frame percentage of hit rate on it, I think it's not worth ignoring, right? So what we can see here, we have this like pre-trend consolidation on the Bitcoin gold chart that then led to the expansion, right? All meanwhile below all-time high. That trend then marked the bottom for the next trend, right? Back into 2015, 2016, 2017, right? Below all-time high, we had that trend. Again, eventually we get that parabolic move up, right? If I highlight this with one with green, I actually missed that, but you can see right there. Again here, going into 2019 to 2020, we can see that trend marks the bottom for our breakout consolidation, once again below all-time high, and then you can see what happens. We get that breakout. Again here, going into the 2019 to 2020 trend, coming into this year's trend, marks the bottom for price. Meanwhile, we are still trading below that all-time high on the gold Bitcoin chart. Does this lead to a fresh push up? I am voting that we are likely going to see something like this happen, just based on the fact that we are seeing that oversold and very undervalued against gold. Do we catch up on Bitcoin? Does Bitcoin catch a rotation with the Fed potentially cutting rates? This could be very, very good for the market going into the rest of the year, into the rest of the Q4 and into January of 2026. Something to consider here, the higher time frame trend for the Bitcoin gold chart remains intact. I've seen a lot of people posting that this chart is breaking down, and I beg to differ. I am against the idea that the Bitcoin gold chart is topped for now, and obviously subject for that to change over time. Okay, to wrap things up, because this has taken way longer than I thought, quickly to discuss Ethereum. I believe that Ethereum again is looking at going on to rally nicely over the course of the rest of the year and going into next year. As long as it continues to hold above 3,900 and 4K, I remain in my spot position. I commented on buying spot the other week in my video. I am spot long ETH with the higher time frame invalidation below that 3,700 area. If we do break under here, then that is my invalidation for my ETH position. Equally, I do think if we did break down and we did start to close under 4K again, I wouldn't like this deviation. So I might be open to closing that position early. We'll keep you guys updated on that and how my position plays out on ETH. Overall, the higher time frame on ETH looks fantastic. Weekly is flagging into this region. I see no reason why someone should be bearish on ETH right now. This just looks like a really clean flag before a breakout yet again, similar to what we saw here into a key level. I think we are just doing that pre-breakout consolidation. Again, subject to change if this does break down below 3,700, but I remain spot long on ETH. It's showing me similarities of the Bitcoin summer range. We can see it's kind of identical on the BTC versus ETH chart. We can see BTC bear market lows to that summer range, almost identical. We have that like consolidation period into the flag, into the breakout, consolidation period, into the flag, into the breakout. If you also pair Bitcoin chart and you draw a trend over it, right? So this is pulling the data from this price action and putting it over ETH. It's tick for tick following the BTC chart, which is pretty crazy to me. The fact that we're following it tick for tick, I would be very surprised, obviously, if it does play out. But I do believe we're having that same effect of that August low where we bottomed on FUD back in August. And equally here, we bottomed on FUD, right? We bottomed on FUD on the tariff news, and we are putting in that nice reclaim. Overall, the structure looks very similar. I think ETH is on a trip back towards 4,700 to 5K as long as we continue to hold this reclaim on it. Overall, continuing to hold above this 2024 and 2021 value area high, identical to what Bitcoin was doing in summer last year. I think things are looking good for Ethereum. In terms of altcoins, I'm not looking at too much. We'll adapt as my system unfolds. I think ZEC looks like a good long anywhere from 300 down to 280. Going to be keeping an eye on my system for a fresh long. And other than that, I don't really have too many altcoins to comment on right now. We'll look at buying on altcoins when I'm more convinced on a market breakout, or if Bitcoin trades back down into 111, 112K. That's pretty much going to do it for this week's Tuesday market review. To wrap things up, make sure you guys check out the socials in the link below. I really did try and cram as much in as possible, but I had a lot to get off my mind today, and I'm remaining bullish. I'm remaining optimistic for the future of the market. It seems like sentiment is pretty bad at the moment because people associate the way the market is trading to how altcoins are moving. But overall, looking good. Weekly on Bitcoin looks great, and until we get those higher time frame closes below 106 and 4K, I don't think there's any reason to be bearish on the market. Hope you guys have a good week. Stay safe and happy trading. Bye bye.